Welcome, baseball fans. It is time for state tournament baseball, and we're going to have all the coverage on Midco Sports Network starting on Saturday with the Class A state tournament. We're down to 4 teams, and there's 2 semifinal games, one at noon, one at 2 o'clock, and then following that, the championship game, all on Midco Sports Network. And if you don't get Midco Sports Network, you can access it on Midco Sports Plus. Just download the app and follow the directions, and you can watch all the games there as well. And I'm joined by Joel Sage. Joel coached Roosevelt for a long time in the spring and has been watching his kids now for the last couple of years, a step down, but happy that he's going to be able to join me in the booth. Joel, looking forward to watching some baseball this Saturday. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And yeah, I can't wait until Saturday to be able to watch these 2 matchups and then see who wins those first 2 games and who ends up with the dog pile at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Baseball is a little different than every other sport in that you have to play 2 games on the same day to win a championship. Just from a coach's perspective, how do you approach that? I mean, I know you had to do that in the regions as well, but how do you come into a situation like that?
Well, the single elimination is what's even more difficult than playing the 2 games in one day. These guys are used to doing double headers, and as a matter of fact, they're used to, going to school in the morning all day, heading right out to the baseball diamond right after school and playing 2 games and being done at 10 or 11 at night sometimes. So that's not necessarily the issue, but the hardest part is the single elimination, especially, you might have a deep pitching staff who's led you to a really good year, but now all of a sudden you're in a win or go home situation. And so it's pretty intense, and you find out how well you can handle the pressure.
I think we saw that in the regionals where some of the top ranked teams, won a lot of games during the regular season because they had deep pitching staffs. And we saw the number 1, 2, and 3 seeds all go home. What's your reaction to how the regions unfolded last weekend?
It was a crazy day of baseball, that's for sure. The first 8 games went chalk. We didn't have a single upset. And then all of a sudden, the 1, the 2, and the 3 seeds all went down, like you said. And if you're Brandon Valley, Washington, and O'Gorman, you're happy about that. But if you're Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Pierre, you're scratching your head, going, "Man, why do we have to do the single elimination?" It's hard, but that's the way it goes.
Well, that brings us to the first game in the state tournament. It's going to be O'Gorman taking on Harrisburg. Harrisburg, the only top 4 seed, the only team that hosted a regional to advance to the state tournament. And this is the first time in their program history they've done so. Let's start by talking about O'Gorman, though. This is a team, they're the defending state champs. 2 years ago, got it done with a young pitching staff that included Sam Stukel and Reese Arbogast, both those guys back this year as seniors. No season last year in the spring. How do you assess a team like O'Gorman? What are some impressions that they have for you, Joel?
The first thing that stands out to me is that they have 15 seniors. So that's a great core right there, guys who have some experience. And even though we had the pandemic and no season last year, Coach Hughes was talking about how a lot of these guys played Legion baseball in the summer and got some of that state tournament, region tournament, state tournament experience. So they didn't buckle under the pressure. They were ready to go. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Reese Arbogast pitch. I mean, he's probably the most experienced pitcher in terms of having the postseason starts. I mean, I watched him pitch his first Legion game in the state tournament out in Pierre in 2018. I think he was going to be a freshman at that time. So, now, and he's had so many starts, regions, state, in between then. And like you said, 2019, he started that first game for them to get them to the championship. And so they're still the defending champs. And Sam Stukel did a great job in that in the championship game against Lincoln. There's another kid who's been pitching ever since his freshman year of high school. He's had varsity experience. So with those 2, Coach Hughes talked about how they know what they're going to get out of those 2. And, they need some other guys to step up. They've obviously have a lot of other good players too, who can chip in and help them out offensively, defensively, taking some extra bases when they can and putting some runs up.
You said it with Reese Arbogast. And the one thing that strikes me about Reese is he's always seemed like a professional pitcher. Even when he was young, he really takes his craft seriously. He's trying to add stuff to his arsenal without adding too much at once. And he's always in control out there. That's one thing I've noticed about Reese.
I agree. Student of the game, knows how to pitch, excellent mound presence. Everything he throws moves. He can really pound the outer half and attack the zone and just kind of force hitters to get themselves out. I know he's had a lot of good starts this year, and even though they gave up the 3 runs in the first inning against Mitchell, he bounced back and put up 6 more zeros to keep his team in it, and eventually they pulled through and won it.
Yeah, and Reese Arbogast, according to Dan Hughes, is going to go that game 1, that semifinal game, and that's typical to have your ace go that game. I just wanted to go over some season stats from O'Gorman as we look at Reese Arbogast. This is a guy who's taken the mound, taken 48 innings in 8 games so far this season. He's 5-2. Those losses, he takes the ball in all the big games, so to only come up with 2 losses is pretty good. His ERA 1.01 and his WHIP below 1 at 0.786. So he's a guy they feel really confident in. He gets more than a strikeout per inning, but you wouldn't call him an overpowering pitcher.
No, more of a lefty who really, really knows how to pitch. And like Coach Hughes said, you know what you're going to get when you put him out on the mound, and it's been that way ever since his first start down in Lawrence, Kansas. I know Coach was impressed with how well he did there, that even though they lost. He did a great job of kind of setting the tone for them, and that's what you want out of your senior leader like that, and a guy that has the big game experience. So, definitely a lot of positives with Reese, and I think it's plain to see why he's going to be going to SDSU next year to pitch.
Yeah, exactly. And when we look at that O'Gorman lineup, we're not looking at a ton of power, but a lot of kids, and you said it, a lot of seniors who can get on base and make big things happen. Jacob Schwab had a big game in the regionals where he cleared the bases with a double and got O'Gorman their first lead against Lincoln. In fact, Lincoln had a no-hitter going for 4+ innings before O'Gorman exploded with some big offense. So Schwab, Nate Sprinkle, Sam Stukel, Andy Moen, Anthony Barr, there's some bats in the middle of that order.
Yeah, and according to Coach Hughes, Nate Sprinkle has really led the way. He also mentioned the lone junior starter, Leo Huners, who Chase Houselog was pitching a great game, 4 2/3 no-hit innings, and had 2 strikes on Leo, I believe. And he came through with the base hit to left field, and that's when they kind of busted loose. They were down 2-0 and left that innings up 6-2.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that can come to the plate, and they've got confidence, 1 through 9 in that lineup. Let's hear from Dan Hughes right now. He talks about how they're in a good place right now as far as confidence after taking that region.
Hey, after this weekend, I think we're playing with a lot of confidence. We're in a great spot. We're just playing some good baseball right now. We just got to keep it going, have a good week of practice, and then come out next Saturday, get right back at it.
Just playing another week of baseball is going to be so much fun. I love this team, and I love these guys, and we're going to make it. We're going to make it an interesting next 2 games.
So O'Gorman coming in with some confidence. They really should have confidence, having 2 really good pitchers, and then they've got some depth that they can go to in the bullpen as well if they need to. But let's talk about their opponent, Harrisburg. This is the one team, as we said earlier, who won their home regional game, and they made it kind of look a little bit easy. Joel, what'd you take from that Harrisburg sweep over in the regionals?
Yeah, I mean, going in, you see the record 26-6 going into the region, and it definitely didn't look like they had to sweat much. Beating Huron 9-2, and then 10-0 over Brookings. And I don't think the Huron win was necessarily a surprise. You have the 4 seed over the 13 seed, but then when you have that 4-5 matchup, especially with Brookings having the type of season that they've had, I think you expected a better game. But yeah, Harrisburg really came out and won that convincingly, 10-0 in 5 innings, and Will Simmons with the no-hitter.
Yeah. Will Simmons' second no-hitter of the year. This one was a 5-inning version of the no-hitter, and he has been pretty much the standard in Class A this year. He's got 98 strikeouts and 44 2/3 innings pitched. His ERA is minuscule. He's only given up 2 earned runs in those 44 innings, and his WHIP at about a half of a walk plus hit per inning. What do you do when you go against a pitcher like Will Simmons, who just feels like, he's got everything under control?
Yeah, he's the real deal. You can see why he's going to be going to North Carolina and pitching for the Tar Heels. He's great command of the fastball that he throws upper 80s, and they said he's had it clocked in the low 90s in some of the indoor sessions. Throws a hard slider, with excellent command of that as well. And so, yeah, you have to go in and you just have to really grind out at bats and try to do what you can and at least put the ball in play and minimize the strikeouts and maybe take advantage of an error or two, because he's not going to give you much. And he's a dominant pitcher, made even more dominant facing other kids in wood bat baseball in the spring. So as far as the game plan, you want to go toe to toe with them. You're going to have to have your best pitcher going up against him and just try to manufacture some runs, but also you're really going to have to try to keep a good offensive lineup like Harrisburg's off the board.
You mentioned it, and this is a Harrisburg team. We don't talk about fielding a lot. We should, because it's a huge part of wood bat baseball. But this Harrisburg team has really worked on their fielding, and their goal was to kind of reduce their errors from about 2 per game to about 1.5, and they're a lot closer to that 1.5 mark right now. Talk about not only Harrisburg's fielding, but the importance of fielding when you get to the state tournament.
Yeah, it's crucial. I mean, you do not want to give your opponent extra outs and put more pressure on your pitchers and your defense, and get those pitch counts up. There's so many things that factor into that. You need to play clean. And Harrisburg has definitely made that an emphasis. I know Coach Abrahamson talked highly about really all of his players, but he said especially up the middle with Tyson Kogel leading the way at shortstop and doing a terrific job. Kind of one of the leaders of that defense, and just have a lot of good team speed and putting an emphasis on footwork and glove work and being able to make those plays.
For sure. We talked about their top arm. We talked about what they do in the field, but this is a team that loves to rip the ball, and there's some teams that can hit well, but these guys really try to pound the fences. They are guys that can hit gap to gap pretty well. Timon Long, Ben Lose, Tyson Kogel, 3 of the more powerful extra base hitters that we have in Class A this year. Just talk about the offense from this Harrisburg team.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely mentioned some of their top hitters, and I know Jack Sutton had a great game against Brookings, went 3 for 3 with, 6 RBI. And,
yeah, he cleared the bases twice. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it was a triple and a home run, right?
The home run didn't clear him yet. Well, he cleared him. Yeah. But yeah, he did it with the homer. Yep.
Yeah, definitely a big day at the plate, and, especially doing it at the right time, helping his team punch their ticket to state. But yeah, absolutely. They've made it in. They've also made that an emphasis. Coach Abrahamson spoke highly of Cole Zimmerman, who's been their hitting coach, as well as Chris Regas from the pitching perspective. But their hitters have really taken a good approach at the plate, looking to get their best swing off every at bat, and really looking to do damage. I think was the term that I heard the most from them and from some of their players.
Well, I talked to Mark Abrahamson, you did as well, after the game when they took the region, and he and a couple of the players on Harrisburg, and they're going in with some confidence because of their deep pitching staff and their good offense. Here's Coach Abrahamson.
We've got 2 arms that are going to get us deep into ball games, and we've got relievers waiting that are just as good. We're deep, and we can really make a run at this.
I feel very confident in Chase Lucas. I mean, he shoved earlier today. I think we're looking good into state.
Looking forward to be there. Looking forward to win.
So Harrisburg coming in with confidence, as they should, as they take on O'Gorman in the first game. These 2 teams played one time earlier this year on April 20th. And Will Simmons recorded a no-hitter in that game through 7 innings with 18 strikeouts and just 2 walks in the game. And he went up against Reese Arbogast, who only gave up 3 hits in 6 innings of work. So these two are the expected starters in this game. But you said that you talked to Coach Abramson, and they've gotten no-hitters left and right this year, right? Right, Joel?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they've had 5 no-hitters. So 2 by Will Simmons, the one that you just mentioned against O'Gorman, and then the one in the region tournament that we talked about earlier. And then they've had Kai Youngblood throw 1, Chase Lucas threw 1, and then they had a combined no-hitter with Sam Rayburn, Tate Kogel, and Taylor Klein. So 5 no-hitters.
That helps. That helps the old win-loss record when you don't give up any hits. But this is going to be a good one. That game, Jack Sutton had a game with a double and RBI to get the lead for Harrisburg, and they won 2-0. In that game, though, O'Gorman made 2 errors, which that's Arbogast's one Achilles heel, is if they're letting a few extra base runners on, and he's got to stay out there a little bit longer and do a little bit more work. That's when he's had his 2 losses this year.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's going to be an outstanding matchup. I mean, anytime you can have a state tournament semifinal game where you have 2 future Division I pitchers going head-to-head, that's exciting. I mean, I hope people are as excited about it as I am. It's going to be fun to watch. In a sense, though, you can kind of disregard that first matchup just because both coaches said the same thing. It was one of those cold, windy, 40-degree days. And as a matter of fact, they even canceled the second game. It was that cold. So, but I still think we're going to see a couple of excellent performances from both Will and Reese. And yeah, we'll see who can do the little things, who can make the plays behind them, who can come up with the big hit and get some guys on, whether it's through an error or a walk or a hit by pitch, and just find a way to manufacture a couple runs. The way this thing lines up, you feel like a couple runs might get the job done.
You are exactly right. And the hits are going to be few and far between. The last 2 times these two locked up, you said the temperature was hugely an issue. This time, there's always potential for rain during a state tournament. And, that could be a little bit of an issue. But I still think that the hits are going to be hard to come by in this one. Any other keys to the game for you here, Joel?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is just these 2 great pitchers. I mean, both coaches, I think, they know exactly what they're going to get. They're going to give their starters the ball and let them go as long as they possibly can. I think it may come down to who can get into the other team's bullpen and maybe have a little success that way, or who can just find a way to scratch out a run or 2 and just score 1 more run than the other team does. That's simple.
It's always the key. All right, let's move on to our 2:00 game, or around 2:00. We're going to have the Washington Warriors take on Brandon Valley. And these are 2 teams that I guess they had to pull quote unquote upsets out to get here. But I'll tell you what, these are 2 teams that look a lot different than they did earlier in the year. They've shown a lot of improvement. Let's start with Washington. Just your impressions of this Washington team and, how they've taken to spring ball and how their season has gone.
Yeah, Coach Vasquez just talked about how you look at the record, it doesn't necessarily look like a great year. They're coming in at 17-13, but he said he's never really felt like there's been that many games where they left and just said, boy, we just got clobbered. So they've kind of been in all their games. I mean, even some of their losses were very close losses. And I don't think anybody expected them to put up 11 runs against Roosevelt. They had 2 very close games with them early in the season. And it was definitely an upset with a 7 over a 2. But I think that was kind of the surprise, was just they were able to have 11 runs on 12 hits.
I think that was a huge surprise. And in fact, I talked to Corey right after the game, and he said, I got chills because we did not expect to hit the ball like that. And they really turned it on, especially toward the end of that game where they took the lead. So Washington can hit the ball. This is a team that hit 291 on the year. Their on base is about 430, and they can slug the ball a little bit. And they've really found their lineup, I think, late in the year here. there's a lot of guys that can get on base for Washington.
Absolutely, and that's kind of how it played out on Saturday. And he talked about how they've been emphasizing getting on base, number one, playing a little small ball when needed. They had that one inning where they had 2 bunts that ended up for hits, and that put a lot of pressure on Roosevelt. And then just making solid contact either up the middle or the opposite field. And we were just talking about how they had a lot of opposite field hits, whether it's the lefty Bryce Ronkin going through the left side, or Garen Heinert hitting a line drive right down the first base line over the first baseman's head. Those are a couple that stood out to me. Just making solid contact, putting the ball in play, and putting some runs up.
One thing offensively I noticed is that Tyler Boehm, he had a glove side injury to one of his shoulders, and he was forced to pretty much bunt at the end of that game. And I'll tell you what, the status is still unknown, but he's their leading hitter. He hits 471 on the year. I hope he can go full in this game, but what does that do when one of your best hitters is not at 100%?
Well, it's tough. I mean, you have that guy that you kind of count on and kind of leads the way, and a guy that opponents maybe even have to pitch around a little bit, and now all of a sudden they don't have to. You take a big bat out of your lineup, it changes the offense, but Washington has handled it well. And Tyler just had that kind of freak injury where he was swinging a bat and dislocated his shoulder a little bit, and they're hopeful he'll be back, but I guess we'll wait and see. But yeah, he could pitch, but just couldn't swing a bat last weekend. So
right, you said it though, he can pitch, and Tyler Boehm and Gage Sharping have done a lot of that pitching for Washington this year. Andrew Evenson's also come in and been very solid, but those two guys are who they've really leaned on. Talk about the pitching staff for this Washington team and how a young guy like Gage Sharping has really stepped up.
Yeah, Coach Vasquez called them 1A and 1B. Tyler Boehm and Gage Sharping, they've both been very competitive for them. You've got the senior, you've got the sophomore. Tyler definitely has a little bit more of the edge as far as experience, but Gage, he really doesn't back down. I mean, he went out and threw 4 innings on Saturday. Tyler did the rest, pitched the last 3, but I think Gage only gave up just the 1 run in 4 innings. And then he also talked about Miles Reese kind of coming on strong here at the end of the season. Hadn't pitched a whole lot, but ended up going 6 innings against Sturgis. So he's been a guy who's kind of turned it on a little bit at the end of the season. And then the lefty Kale has done a good job for them. So
yeah, they've got some weapons there. I didn't get an answer on who's starting that game 1. Did you ask about that at all, Joel? I didn't either. Yeah, you said it. There's 1A and 1B. So we'll find out. And honestly, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. They've got both of them if they need them. And those two guys are ready to go. We talked to Corey Vasquez, the coach for Washington, and he's talked specifically about playing Brandon Valley and what you have to do to be ready to go against the Lynx.
A very good ball club. Brandon's always they're going to bring a great game. They do the little things very well. They stay in games. They have every opportunity ahead of them, and we got to come out and play a good game.
They got a guy, Kobeck, and they got some other seniors. I mean, they started off the year slow, but they've picked it up. They're not a team to look down on for sure. It's going to be exciting, and I'm looking forward to it.
So Corey Vasquez knows that Brandon Valley is not a team to look down for sure, and they're really looking forward to this matchup. Let's talk about this Brandon Valley team and just overall impressions, Joel, for this Lynx team.
They're a team that has really gotten better as the year has progressed. I know I talked to Coach Van Heel, and he was just talking about how, maybe mid-April they were hitting about 212, and all of a sudden just kind of turned it on and have really gotten better, and just kind of needed that varsity level experience. They have some guys who are new to that level of baseball, high school baseball, and so it's a team that has just gotten better as the season has progressed.
It definitely has, and I asked specifically if there's a turning point in that season, and it seems like everybody's got a little different idea. Jeremy Van Heel said there was a point in the middle of the season where they started to really believe in themselves. I asked Joe Kobeck. He said the turning point was when they lost a couple games to Dakota Valley at the end of the regular season, and they said, "Hey, time to wake up, guys." no disrespect to Dakota Valley. They are a good team, but we're going to have to play a lot better if we want to get to state. And they did. Even after a struggle with Yankton, they got it done against Pierre. This is a team that really used some different pitchers, but Carson Askdahl is one of the guys that really has stepped up for this team, especially in the second half.
Yeah, Coach Van Heel speaks highly of Carson Askdahl. Pitched a great game against Pierre in the championship, went all 7 innings. I think it was just 3 hits and 2 runs, but struggled a little bit with his curveball, so went to the slider, but locates the fastball well. He's not going to give you free passes, and can mix in a changeup if needed too. So just a kid that can really mix it up and keep hitters off balance and attack the zone.
Coach Van Heel wouldn't say for sure, but he was leaning strongly towards going with Askdahl, but he's got a lot of different pitchers that he feels like are kind of peaking at the right time. And he's got a lot of different pitchers that throw a lot of different stuff too. And that really can keep a team on their heels a little bit, can it, Joe?
Right, and that's kind of what they did in that first game. They had Caleb Zur, who won't necessarily overpower you with his fastball, but he can locate it. He's got a good curveball. He went, I think, 4 or 5 innings, and they went to Matt Brown. And then ended up just needing Joe Kobeck to come in and strike out a batter with runner on third base in a 4-3 game. So a lot of options as far as who can pitch and when they can pitch, and you should probably throw Trey Shanahan in the mix there too. Kid who's been clocked upper 80s and a very good curveball. Nick Hockenstead has logged some really good innings for them too. So definitely a deep pitching staff. Plenty of options for them to be able to give them some quality innings.
This Brandon Valley team won it all in 2018. Joe Kobeck was a freshman that year, played second base. He was kind of a role player. He's really grown into a leader, not only an all-state player as a sophomore, but one of the best players in the state. You've watched Joe Kobeck for several years, Joel. What makes him special?
Well, just a great kid, great all-around athlete, probably one of the best 3-sport athletes in the state. I think everybody knows he has a ring in football, basketball, and baseball, and not many kids can say that. And he's been a huge part of all of those wins for those teams and those programs. And I think the biggest thing when I watch him on the baseball diamond is just his quiet confidence. You can tell he slows the game down, has that quiet heartbeat, and you watch him in the box. He's just fun to watch. He's just a kid that understands the strike zone, and when he gets a pitch he wants, he's going to unload on it and get his best swing off every at bat. And pitching, I think, has been a little bit of a surprise just because he hasn't done it a whole lot. He's such a staple in the infield that you want to leave him out there, but there's been games where they just kind of said, you know what, we need you to come in, and he's welcomed that challenge, and he's good. He'll throw it up upper 80s, maybe even low 90s, and really blow it by some guys.
One of the best, and you said it, just a great kid too, and that's the kind of guy you want leading your team as you try to win 2 games on the same day. So that's Joe Kobeck. We talked to Joe Kobeck, and I talked a little bit to Jeremy Van Heel, not only about playing the Warriors, but Jeremy says this team reminds him a little bit of that 2018 team.
And I'll be honest, this team reminds me a lot of that team that won it. We have a lot of guys that are inexperienced at the varsity level, but they're starting to find themselves. Our biggest thing is if we come together as a team, when we played Pierre, we played as a team. Everybody was in it for one purpose, and the guys didn't let the moment get too big. They understand that strikeouts are going to come, errors are going to happen, but it was just the mentality of the next guy up. Hey, I didn't do the job. This could be the first guy on the front of the bench and just sitting there cheering that next guy on because, hey, all it takes is that one guy to come up with that big hit. I could go 0 for 3 on the day and strike out 3 times, but if I come up there in the 7th inning and get 1 hit, maybe I get on base and that could be the winning run.
It's a good reminder. We know that we were close with them, and it was cold weather. We know that we can compete with them, so I think we have a good chance. So we're excited to get back, and play them again. Just being out there with the boys one last time. We didn't know if we were going to be out here or not. It's always fun knowing when your last practice is and knowing the last time you can get together. So I'm excited to.
So yeah, Jeremy Van Heel says when they play together as a team, they can beat anybody. And I believe him. I think this is a Brandon Valley team that definitely can play with the rest of the state, including Washington.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. They received the message that Joe Kobeck gave them after the Dakota Valley games, because they went out to Pierre, a place that's not an easy place to win, and won back-to-back games, close games. Kind of, I think, what people expected, especially with the Pierre game. You know, Pierre's going in as a 3 seed, and Brandon upset them on their home field. So they are playing great baseball. They've kind of figured out how to win, and they're in a good position here to play Washington. I think you can kind of throw that first matchup out the window. It's another one of those.
It was the same day, exactly the same day as that other semifinal preview that we had. So yeah, you're right. That was a nasty day.
Yeah, and both coaches said the same thing. You know, one of those deals where they were just trying to hurry up and get that one game in, and they ended up canceling the second game of the doubleheader.
Yeah, Washington did win that game 3-2 against Brandon Valley back, over a month ago. And Garen Heinert hit a single to win it in the bottom of the 7th off of Carson Askdahl. And I'm pretty sure Askdahl is going to go in this game again. He'll have that in the back of his mind. He's seen these guys before. It really should be another terrific semifinal matchup. Anything particular you're looking forward to in this matchup?
Yeah, I just want to see how much both teams have improved, because both coaches just said that, they talked about that game and just said, we really weren't, neither of us were really playing that well at that time. And so I want to see how much they've improved. And I think we're going to be in for a great game.
I am looking forward to it. Just a reminder again, 12 o'clock, Midco SN with the coverage of the first game between O'Gorman and Harrisburg, where we've got 2 future D1 pitchers going at it. And in the second game around 2 o'clock, we'll have Brandon Valley taking on Washington, 2 teams that know each other well, geographically very close. They've played some region games together over the years. They've gotten to know each other. That should be a dynamite game as well. And we will have it all. I'll be on the call with Joel Sage, and then we'll stay tuned for the championship game. And like you said, see which team gets to dogpile. What are you looking forward to most about just the environment of baseball being back this weekend for a championship setting?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Baseball being back. Last year was tough. We had an entire season wiped out. And in retrospect, maybe it could have worked out. They were able to play the Legion season, but there were just too many unknowns. And it's one of those moments where, thank goodness, we're back to being able to play and host a state tournament. And kids talk about it all year long, where, who's going to make it to the Birdcage, who's going to make it to Canary Stadium. It's nice to have that venue, similar to football, where everybody wants to make it to the Dome. Well, these 4 teams have a chance to play at Canary Stadium, have a chance to win a couple games, and they're all going to have great memories, but there's one team that's going to have a memory that tops them all.
That is true. And whoever wins it is going to have to earn it. That's for sure, with this field of Class A teams that we've seen this year. It's been a lot of fun previewing the Class A's. We'll see you out at the Birdcage. Come say hi to us, or watch us online on Midco Sports Plus, or you can watch us if you get Midco on Midco SN. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.